What's going on, everybody? It is your boy Chris, man. We are here at the Work Hard, Play Harder podcast. It is Thursday, January 11th, 2024. Once again, my name is Chris Drummond. I am a sports reporter, broadcaster based here out of Minnesota. I'm also a proprietor of this podcast, Self Made, Work Hard, Play Harder, where we like to talk about people's why and get to know them beyond their occupation. I have a special guest that I'm bringing on today. Her name is Susan Murphy. She has been an adjunct professor at Hofstra, also at Stony Brook. She's been a news director. She's been a news anchor. She's been a producer. She has an abundance of experience in the journalism game and now is a broadcast coach and does voiceovers as well. So we're going to talk to her about her why, talk to her why she got into media, journalism, ask her some fun questions and get to know her a little bit. So without any further ado, I bring to you the wonderful, the talented Susan Murphy. Hey, Susan, how we doing today?
Doing just fine, Chris. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Lovely to see you. Just want to
Lovely
say
to see you.
thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Just want to say thank you for coming on here to my podcast, Work Hard, Play Harder. I want to ask you how your week is going so far.
So far, the week is going okay. I spent all of December struggling with pneumonia and a sinus infection. So I'm
Oh,
finally starting to feel better and like getting back into the swing of things. But if Christmas happened, it bypassed me, but that's okay.
totally understand that. I'm glad to hear that you're feeling fine.
Mm.
And thank you once again for coming on. Before I start peppering you with questions, let me because I know you reached out to me as well. I believe that's what it was initially. I want to ask you, what made you want to reach out to me?
There was something I picked up in your just basic curiosity about
Hmm.
things, about life, about broadcast, about whatever, that I thought, this is a fella I need to know.
Okay.
You're just a guy who wants answers, a guy who's not afraid to stand up and do it. I mean, and I thought, I need him in my corner. You just never know.
I like that. I really do. And listen, I love talking to people of experience. The reason why I started this podcast is because I'm a sports journalist out here. I'm in journalism. I'm pursuing my master's right now in professional writing. And I love talking to different people who've been in journalism, right? You've been a news anchor, you've been a producer, you've been a teacher as well in two different schools in Hofstra and Stony Brook. So somebody who has definitely been in the communication game, I love to hear about their stories. I love to hear about their whys. I love to hear about their experiences, things that they went through, because I can either learn something from it and then apply it to my life, or just get to know somebody new. So I always love getting to know new people for sure.
And that's the beauty of LinkedIn, is that we can build communities of people that we wouldn't have the opportunity to get to know, and I've loved doing that. So, on your journey, if there's something I can do to make that a little easier for you, I'm all about that, because the good people in our industry will always pay it forward. If you're dealing with someone in our industry who wants nothing to do with you, you want nothing to do with them.
Hey, you speaking the gospel right now, Susan. That's for sure. No question about that. Um, Now, I always start this first question off with why, right? Why was your why of getting into journalism and media? We'll get to what you do now, which is you do voiceovers and you're a broadcast coach. If a
Uh-huh.
broadcast voice coach, I should say. We'll get into that. But why did you want to pursue journalism and media from the start?
That's a really easy question to answer, because when I was 14 years old, I got to do a radio commercial sort of accidentally. The girl who was supposed to do it, they had changed the date and she had already gone away to summer camp. So
Wow.
her mom said, "Hey, Susan, do you want to do this?" And I said, "Sure." So 14 years old, I go into a radio studio. It's a commercial for a department store, and I don't remember the lines that I read, but I was playing a teenage shoplifter.
Wow.
And then they paid me. And I went, I like this. I can get paid to speak. So of course, I was kind of, they say about journalists, we're just high school drama kids who can't sing. So I did love drama and I did love theater. And I thought, well, the next best thing is I'm going to pursue journalism because I'm going to be on TV. And it was doing that commercial that said, oh, look at that.
Mm, I like that. Now, did you grow up in Philadelphia?
I did.
Okay, okay, because I have family from there, so I'm very familiar with Philadelphia and Benjamin Franklin and Broad Street. I'm a sports guy, so Broad Street I'm definitely familiar with, no
Hey,
question.
I was around for the original OG Broad Street Bullies for the
Yeah,
Flyers. And, Philly sports fans, oh dear Lord, how about them Eagles? Or as my
I know.
say, how about them Eagles?
Right, right. Hey, how do you think they're going to fare? Bonus question: how do you think they're going to fare this weekend against the Bucks?
Oh, I think, it's what is with this collapse thing in the defense, but you never know what it's going to take. Just one good play, maybe two strung together that they might get their mojo back, but it's looking, I don't know, it's iffy. But it's also the Bucks, so whatever.
It is. I do have the Eagles winning this game. I think it's going to be close. You're right about the defense. The defense is not what it was last year for
Mhm.
sure. There's something clearly wrong with Jalen Hurts. He's not 100% healthy, I don't think, in
Okay.
my opinion, watching the games.
Yep.
But
Hmm.
now the injuries are starting to mount up with their receivers. But I just think if they get back to running the ball, they should be successful. And like you said, it's the Bucks. They played in the worst division of the eight. Of the eight in the NFL. So
Right.
I think they can get by the Bucks this week. But yeah, so I'm rooting for your Eagles for sure.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, you can take the girl out of Philadelphia. You can't take the Philadelphia out of the girl.
No question. And with that being said, great segue to this next question. You went to Temple University,
I
and Temple
did.
University, everybody knows, is in Philadelphia, if I'm not mistaken. Uh, were there any other schools that could have persuaded you from going to Temple? Maybe a Villanova, or maybe something else in Philadelphia, or something outside.
No, nothing else in Philadelphia because I wanted to be a communications major. And in the mid 70s, that's how far back we're going, Temple's reputation was and still is stellar. So the only other school I applied to was the University of Ohio at Athens. They had a
Wow.
good communications program, but I didn't apply to Syracuse, and I don't know why. But I kind of knew I was just going to stay home and commute to school. So I did, and I finished because I went year round. I graduated college in 2.5 years. I was 1 month shy of my 21st birthday when I graduated.
Wow.
Yeah,
Look
I
at
decided, I got to get this done. I got to get a job. I need to like, boom. That's what I did.
that's dedication right there, because that's a prestigious university in Temple, and to get that done in less than 3 years, that's damn impressive, Susan. No question about
Um,
it.
I just kept going and just didn't stop. And back then, it's not like it is now where you have to take core courses.
Right.
I had to take half of my courses had to be in communication, and the other half, anything I wanted.
Oh, okay.
So I
All right.
took modern dance. I took a couple of criminal forensics courses and sociology. I didn't have to take math. I didn't have to take a language. Man, I loved going to Temple because I could do what I want to do. It was cool.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love that. And that is awesome. That's good good information right there. Let me ask you some favorite questions here. Okay. So I got some favorite questions I'm just gonna ask you. You tell me the 411 off the rip. Are you ready, Susan?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it. Favorite meal you like to cook?
No, I don't like to cook. So my favorite meal is anything that somebody else makes me.
Okay. Okay, let me flip it. Favorite meal you like to eat?
Favorite meal I like to eat. Anything with seafood, and the fancier the better.
Okay, I like that. So you the type that like to get the crab tails, put the stuff on, have the juices flying everywhere and get that going. Are you that type?
I am that type. And back when I was in college, there was a great little place down along the water in Philadelphia called Waltz. It was a hole in
Okay.
the wall. It was a glorified bar, had the best mussels, and
Mhm.
people knew it. So sometimes you had to wait to get into Waltz, but man, those mussels, mm.
Okay. Now you can settle this being a true Philadelphia native that you are. And I have an aunt uncle that's also from Philadelphia as well. But I want you to settle this. Tell me about Geno's and Pat's. What is the place that you go to get a real cheesesteak there in Philadelphia? Please tell me.
For me, it was always Pat's.
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure why. I think, it didn't used to be that much of a battle back in the day. It
Right.
seems to be way more feisty than it ever was. It was just like, oh, you had your favorite, or if, you were closer to Geno's, fine, we go to Geno's. But now it's apparently like, oh, you go to Geno's, what's the matter with you?
Right.
We just always went to Pat's, and I can't even tell you why. It was just because, but that's what it was 45, 50 years ago. Now it's a bigger deal.
It is a bigger deal. Yeah. I've
Pat's.
heard that those two places, people know them. And I've also heard that that's not the two places you go. You want to go to the mom and pop stores. I was like, okay, maybe the corner stores might be good.
Well,
I heard about Wawa too.
oh, wow, wow, well, sure. Back in the day, cities weren't foodie or whatever. So if you were a local, you knew the good places to go, like the Melrose Diner, which I don't think that's there anymore. I don't know, but boy, a lot of late nights, 2 a.m. at Melrose Diner. I remember them well. Um, so, you just went, and it wasn't something that would break up families, which now the Geno's Pats thing would break up a family. So, you just went to where you were comfortable. You went to Waltz, you just knew where to go. Down the shore, you
Okay.
always knew where to go. It just because it wasn't foodie. It was just good.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah.
Favorite concert you've ever attended?
Oh, uh, Billy Joel, and he beats out Paul McCartney by just that much.
Wow.
Um,
Okay.
of course, I think I sat closer in Billy Joel, which is maybe why I'm saying this. But when I left Philadelphia, I spent a little time in Florida, and then most of my professional years were spent in New York.
Okay.
So, I have a real soft spot for Billy Joel because he's the Long Islander, and that's where I lived. But of course, to see Paul McCartney is a dream come true. And when you're old enough to remember the Beatles and love the Beatles and had a Beatles lunchbox, it's like I said, neck and neck. But I'm going to go with Billy Joel.
I mean, who doesn't love Beatles music? Everybody has sampled one of their songs, so whoever's been great. I
Mhm.
mean, obviously, Let It Be, Yellow Submarine, Yesterday. I can go on and on with the Beatles. Man, Billy Joel, the piano man himself. Who don't like some Billy Joel? I
Never
mean,
a bad song between the two of them, really. I mean, they were just hit after hit. They were truly music. They're both geniuses that, it's like being able to say that you got to watch Michael Jordan play basketball or you
yep,
got to watch Tom Brady play football. To be able to say that I got to see the best of the best, perform,
right.
um, I- it's humbling. And I'm glad I live in this era that I have to be able to
Sure.
say I've seen some wonderful musicians.
And you said New York. Is that where you are now? In New York?
No, I now live in North Carolina, but
Okay, so you're in the South. I love it. I love
yes,
that.
and boy, that was a real change going from Long Island to North Carolina outside of Charlotte. So it's been a pleasant move, but it's had some moments.
Sure, sure, absolutely. Obviously, I'm very fond of Charlotte. I actually transplanted from Atlanta to Minnesota now, but Buzz City or Queen Buzz City, Queen City is what they call Charlotte. So
That is
definitely
correct.
Charlotte's one of my favorite places to go for
Yep.
sure.
Yep.
Okay, I like that. Two
Mhm.
more of the favorites. Okay, favorite place you've ever traveled to?
Paris.
Wow,
Oh,
what
don't
was
get
that
me
trip
started.
like?
Oh, I have been obsessed with Paris since I was a little girl. Like, okay, how does that happen when you're a little girl? You're obsessed with some foreign country and a city, but I just was. I would read children's books about Paris and what have you. And then I finally got to go. It was a birthday present from my husband the year I turned 50.
Oh,
And I remember being on the plane and we were getting ready to go. And I thought, I mean, I was so excited and I so looked forward to this, but I thought, I've wanted this my whole life. What if it doesn't live up to the hype?
right,
So on the
right.
plane ride home 10 days later, I've never cried leaving a city. I cried leaving Paris because it was so wonderful.
Okay, 10 days there too. I bet you experienced quite a bit there when you was there, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, sure. I mean, the first time you go, you have to do mostly the touristy things. And so we did a lot of that. And I did get to go back by myself. My husband said, "Oh, I'm going to go on this trip. You go to Paris, blah, 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 blah." And we sometimes did that. And waltzing around Paris by yourself and trying to pretend you're Parisian. Yeah, right. Uh-huh. That was fun too. But the first trip to Paris is just one you never forget.
Absolutely. I love that. I do. This is a two-part favorite question. What is your favorite sport to attend in person, and what is your favorite sport to watch on TV?
Okay. Favorite sport to attend in person is probably college football.
Okay.
Um, our daughter went to Boston College back in the early 2000s when they had Christian McCaffrey and
Yeah.
Matty Ice. Um,
Okay.
so we kind of saw some great football at Boston College. But then, she graduated and went to law school, whatever. But, Dan and I, we were back on Long Island and, we still, we want to go see college football games. So we lived right near Stony Brook. So we just loved watching college football. So we got season tickets to Stony Brook just to watch college football. I mean,
Wow.
it was fun. It was just get a hot dog, sit wrapped up in a blanket. I mean, it was great. So that's what I like to attend in person.
Okay.
I like to watch on TV. Um, well, being a TV person and
Sure.
never having had the chance really to do sports, I should tell you the story about the chance that got away, but that's another story. I actually love to watch things like the Super Bowl, the Olympics,
Sure.
um, those big where you need a million uh, trucks and trailers, and I'm all about the shots and how they get it, and the technical directors and the producers, and so I love to watch super duper multi-camera shoots and on probably any sport.
Yeah, I love asking that particular question, and that kind of was a new question that I brought on to my podcast, and because there's a lot of people that don't like to watch certain sports on TV, but they like to attend them in person. Baseball being one of for me, I know baseball can be very hard to watch on TV, no question. But when you're in person, it's different, and especially when it's in the playoffs.
Oh, sure.
Playoffs is something different when you watch
Oh,
a baseball game.
yeah, we
Everything
were
matters, every pitch matters.
we were big Yankee fans in our house. So, yeah, we got to go to both stadiums. Kind of love the old stadium more than the new one, but you're right. Watching baseball, there's nothing like it from the stands.
I would tell you this. Last year, I'm such a traveler, and I always look to see when I can have some days off, and I like to travel, and I do travel by myself because I'm a bachelor still. So I went to Yankee Stadium. Went to a Yankees game for the first time. Walked past Madison Square Garden for the first time. I was like, you know what? I could see myself in there one day, like actually doing something, right? And I like to have those kind of visions in my mind to be able to do that. So when I went to Yankee Stadium, it was great. It was in the Bronx. I rode the train,
Yeah.
sorry, the subway, I should say. It was cool, and it was right about the rats there. They was right about Penn Station and the rats, no question. But that's okay. It was still
Okay.
cool. On 161st Street and going to the game.
Yes.
That was
Yes.
awesome. Okay.
It's it's a moment that everybody should have once. And maybe that kind of moment exists in St. Louis or San Francisco. I don't know, but I know it exists in New York.
No question. There's legendary fields that I've had the chance to go to. Yankee
Yeah.
Stadium being one, Wrigley Field being another one. Me
True.
born in Chicago, though, and I want to go to Fenway Park too. I like to go to Boston at some point.
Been to Fenway Park. When my husband turned 40, he wanted to go to Fenway Park. So, and he wanted to sit in the Green Monster.
Sure.
I had to get obviously secondary market tickets. I never did tell him how much I paid for those tickets for us to sit in the Green Monster. I don't even remember who we watched playing, but
Right. Your pocketbook was was
for
dented a
months.
little bit.
Whoa, for months. Yeah. But
I got you.
glad we could say we did it.
That's true. And listen, that's love. I'm hoping to find that kind of love. That's for sure. Because you're
Well,
not
I
going
can
to do that with
tell.
just anybody, for sure.
Exactly. And yours is coming.
I
Hold
appreciate
out.
that. Thank you,
Be
Susan.
Yes. Yes, yours is coming.
I appreciate that. The next question that I have for you is about your day to day, what you do. Now, we talked about you being a broadcast voice coach. I know you do some voiceovers as well. But this is a two-part question. You can talk about what you do on a day to day basis, but also B, I would like for you to talk about what role have you done in your life that has had the most impact? Because, like we talked about, you've been a news anchor, producer, you've been a news director, you've been a professor at Hofstra and Stony Brook for a lot of years. So, talk about the role that's had the most impact on you and why as well.
Oh, that's a tough one. Okay. Do you want me to do that or day to day first?
You can do it day to day.
Day to day. Now that I'm in North Carolina and I'm of an age where I don't have to work full time anymore.
Sure.
So the broadcast voice coaching thing is something I came up with about 2.5 years ago. I was flipping channels down here in North Carolina and I would see reporters on TV who could do a good story. They shot beautiful footage. Their writing was okay, but their voices just really weren't, some of them weren't listenable or pleasant or authoritative or certainly just not grating or unpleasant. So
Right,
I
right.
thought, well, I've worked with voice my whole life, doing regional theater, taking singing lessons. I've taken voice acting lessons, just being in the business for 40 plus years. I've done promos, I've done all kinds of work. I narrate documentaries. I thought, I could work with these young reporters and help them find what I always say is their authentic, natural pitch, because they tend to speak because everything's all tense. Their muscles are tense and their pitch tends to rise. So I could teach them some strategies to really dig out a beautiful sound so that when they were doing a live shot or whether they were tracking their stories, I would want to listen to them. And I
Absolutely.
approached a news director friend of mine, and he thought it was a great idea. So he sent me two of his reporters, didn't pay me, but he wrote me a really nice recommendation. And I hung out my shingle on LinkedIn. And I have a website, and obviously, the more I coach, the better I get at it. And now I've coached probably 160 people over 2 years, 2.5 years.
Wow.
And I most of them find me, and I don't charge a lot of money. Most voice coaches do charge a lot of money, although I think I'm the only broadcast voice coach. There are TV coaches. I don't do TV coaching. I work
Sure.
with your voice and work with your writing. So, knowing that these young broadcasters aren't making a lot of money, I mean, I don't charge a lot. And will I throw you in an extra session or what? Oh, sure. So, I have gotten so much satisfaction out of it. I would have to say it's probably my life's work to be able to help young broadcasters, because when they find a natural pitch, when they find where their voice sits in their body, confidence grows.
Absolutely.
Just become better broadcasters, better people. And to watch that, that's priceless. So what I do now is um, probably what I'm meant to do.
Okay.
But as you pointed out, my broadcast career, in broadcast, as you really have to always be ready to pivot. You always have to be ready to reinvent yourself.
Yes.
Technology changes, audience changes, um, how TV and radio and film to some degree do things, that changes. Podcasts, they didn't exist, obviously, when I was in school, but most of us coming up through Temple, whatever, you went to work for a radio station before you went to television. Now that doesn't happen. There are so few radio stations who do news, breaks my heart. Um, because there are some areas of the country that are news deserts, that if severe weather or a train that's leaking poisonous gas or
Sure.
God knows what, there'd be no place to go for that information. But that's another story. So when you work in radio, you do learn a lot about your voice, certainly from the people you work with, but just from doing it. Same thing in podcasting to a degree. So I love to work with podcasters on voice and some things that they might not think about. And I know podcasting is different from radio in that there's no boundary to the entry point of podcasting, which is great because you
Sure.
can hear all kinds of people from everywhere talking about anything, unlike radio. So I applaud that, but like radio, and I did used to teach the history of radio when I was at Hofstra, um, it shakes out. Not everybody can, have a successful podcast. Did you know that when radio was kind of coming into prominence in the late 20s, department stores had little radio stations, and my favorite, funeral homes had radio stations.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, but they didn't survive. It was the ones and the visionaries who started networks and the visionaries who brought talent. And so podcasting will go the same way. We don't know yet where the dominance in podcasting will be. Of course, how to monetize it, that's always the big question. But
That's
you have
my
to make it
question.
something people want to listen to too.
Yeah, absolutely. No question about that. What would you say is the role that had the most impact on you? Is it that broadcast role that you're doing now, or would it be teaching? Would it be coming up as an anchor or a producer? What would you say that had the most impact on you?
For a long time, I worked for public television on Long Island, and I did a lot of producing and on-air fundraising for them.
Sure.
And another producer there who became my producing partner, to make a long story short, we got a grant from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting for $1 million
Okay.
to attempt and build a new way of doing public television fundraising, the pledge breaks that you still see. They don't do as much of it, but in the 90s they did. And we came up with such an unusual idea that the Corporation for Public Broadcasting gave us $1 million that we did. And then we worked with stations around the country. And just for me, for the personal growth in being a producer and on-air person in this project that nobody had ever done and was being tested by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, it just taught me a lot about things that I didn't think I could do, things I didn't
Right.
think I'd ever have to do, things that I would never in a million years dream that I could, go into meetings and have um, people listen to me as an expert and in managing this money and in putting together the testing. And we did have a successful run with trying to do this new kind of fundraising that a lot of other TV stations adopted. But
Okay.
it was about a 2-year period. But that whole situation to me was eye-opening in that, yeah, Susan, you can do this. Sure you can. And I enjoyed that. That was the one thing that changed me a lot. At one point, my producing partner and I had to go over to Wales. We were taping something, and he didn't realize his passport had expired like 3 days earlier. So
Wow.
I went to Wales first. He had to pay a small fortune to get that passport expedited. But I started the project in Wales. Oh my God. I thought, I can't do this. I've never done this by myself. Yeah, hello. I can do that. So that for me was a period of great growth.
I like that. I do. I love what you said about your voice and kind of finding it and being able to help people. Over 160, like I said, journalists you said that you helped out, which is amazing. And you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. I like to tell people who just graduated, because I've been in the industry. I'm still kind of fairly new, but I've been in for about 4 years. I'm an older student, but I've tried everything as far as producing, editing, broadcast, also print. Right now, I'm on the print side of journalism. So I write for actual publication and I edit photos. But finding your voice and being comfortable with it. I believe theater helped me in high school. I did a couple of plays. And I believe when you act in front of people and you shake off that nervousness a little bit and you project your voice and have to say lines, that helps you find your voice. I'm also a person that's naturally outgoing and I
Yeah.
naturally am very blunt. I'm very open,
Yeah.
but I'm also very honest. And I love people. So I just call it like I see it. I just tell you what it is. And then you either with me or you're not. I respect it either way, but at least you know where I'm coming from because
Right.
I'm just that kind of person to be open
Right.
like that. So
Right.
I truly believe what you're talking about when you say find your voice.
Right. And it's not just the physical part, which, your voice kind of comes from the bottom of your diaphragm. And when you're projecting and using the proper pitches
Yes.
that I can teach you and show you how to find, but it's also, as you said, the other finding your voice, meaning to find the courage, to find the tenacity, to
Yes.
find the the reason to step into something that feels a little outside your comfort zone,
Sure.
which is kind of like me in that PBS project, completely outside of my comfort zone. But if you make those steps, you'd be amazed at what can happen. And there are just so many people who are afraid. And what I find, since this is a sort of natural segue, what I find in working with young women and voice,
Okay.
that a lot of young women don't use that, what is often a lower pitched, rounder, bolder voice,
Okay.
because of something that happened in their families, in their childhoods. I don't find this with men, but I do find with women, they are quiet, they are girlish, they are breathy, they are, unsupported voice because either somebody told them to sit down and shut up, somebody said to them, I don't care what you think, somebody said to them, you're just a girl, why do you matter? Or it was an odd relationship with parents or siblings or teachers. And these young women held on to little girl voices because that's what got them through the dysfunction they grew up with. And when I realized that's 15 to 20% of the women I work with, that's a little heartbreaking to me to hear
Sure.
those stories, or I don't require that they tell me the stories, but you can just read between the lines. So to be able to, I'll say to them, look, I'm giving you permission to use your natural pitch and your real voice, your authentic voice. I want you to give yourself permission too. For some women, it's life-changing. Tears will come to their eyes and they might have to practice it, and they don't really know what that voice sounds like until I can show them and show them enough so that they know when they're not using it and when they are. I I had no idea that part of this job would be allowing them to step into their own agency, their own voices, step forward in that news meeting. Don't sit in the back, you know, drop your shoulders, breathe from your belly, be who you are. And
Right.
don't be afraid of that. Those days of somebody telling you to sit down and shut up, that's over. That's doesn't count anymore. Oh boy, that's something else, let me tell you. And again,
Yes, it is.
so rewarding.
Happy to hear that you do that, Susan. I really am. And once again, I'm talking to Susan Murphy, broadcast coach, voiceover, does voiceovers as well, an abundance of experience in this journalism game on my Work Hard, Play Harder podcast when this does post. I want to do something fun right now.
Okay.
This or that. Okay. So what I do
Okay.
this or that by throwing two things at you. Now you get to choose this or that. Pretty simple. Are you with me, Susan?
I am totally down for this.
Okay. All right. Here we go. Popeyes or KFC?
Popeyes.
Okay. I like that. We off to a good start, by the way, because I love me some Popeyes. All
Yeah,
right. I
well, I
like
mean,
it.
moving to the South, which is where you find most Popeyes, I mean, you have to get used to the kick. You have to get used to
Oh yeah,
and Popeyes definitely comes with it.
I know that's right. Okay. Tom Brady or Peyton Manning?
Has to be Peyton Manning. You can't come from New York and actually root for Tom Brady. Are you kidding me? Mm, don't even. Don't even.
I know that's right. Okay, these are chicken wing flavors: barbecue or lemon pepper.
Lemon pepper.
Okay. Do you like your wings bone in or boneless?
Bone in.
Okay, so you like to get messy, is what you're saying.
Oh yeah, yeah. I like the effort that you have to put in.
I like that. I like that. Okay.
Yeah.
This has to do with music. Okay. Which concert would you go see in person? Okay. Now, would you go see Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, or would you go see Aerosmith?
Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Okay, I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
This next
Mm-hmm.
one also has to do with music. Okay. Which music artist would you rather see in person? Would you rather see Carrie Underwood, or would you rather see Morgan Wallen?
I have to admit I don't know much about Morgan.
Okay.
I'd go see Carrie Underwood. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
But
Okay.
you
I
know,
like
I'd also go see an artist I don't know a lot about to be
right.
exposed to that music too.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. So this is a hypothetical music one, but this is the last of the music ones for this or that. Which one would you rather see in person? Would you have in their prime? Whitney Houston or Janet Jackson?
Oh, oh man, that is so hard.
It is, but hey, that's what we do. We do. We ask the hard ones on here.
I would, you said see in person. I would want to go see Janet Jackson
Okay.
because of her of her style of being an entertainer. Not that
Mhm.
Whitney Houston wasn't, but that Whitney Houston voice, I mean, whether it's the Star Spangled Banner or I Will Always Love You, you can always get that on a CD. Whereas Janet Jackson is more the whole package in terms of entertainment, whether she's got a wardrobe malfunction at the Super Bowl or not.
Right. Right.
I would go
Right.
see Janet Jackson. Yeah.
I know my mother actually had the privilege of seeing one of her Rhythm Nation tours,
Ah, I would have
and
killed.
she definitely did her thing. From what I heard. So yes, I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Here we go. Which sport would you rather play, badminton or bowling?
Bowling.
Are you a good bowler, Susan?
No. Although I once, nobody believes me because I was with my daughter. She was about 6 years old at the time. We were going bowling after school one day. Chris, I made the 7-10 split. I made it.
Did you?
And a bowler for, I mean, it was the middle of the afternoon, so there's like three people in the place. One guy came
Okay.
down and said, "Oh my God, congratulations, you did that." And I said, "Whoa, yeah." And this was before cell phone cameras and whatever. So
Uh-huh.
I was working at a radio station at the time, and I go on the air the next morning and I say, "Hey, yesterday I made a 7-10 split." Well, they wouldn't believe me because I didn't have proof,
That's
right?
very
Instead,
hard to believe, Susan, but because you're saying it, I promise you, I'm not thinking that you're lying. I don't think you're lying at all. I'm going to believe you
I
because it's
did it.
hard to make a 7-10 split.
It was lightning by the grace of God. I mean, I went, what? But I did.
Okay. I love it. I love that. And you're honest. I love your honesty. You said, no, I can't bowl. That's okay. As long as you don't need the bumpers. Do you need the bumpers?
No.
Okay, good. I always throw that out there. The people that say they can't bowl. If you need the
Yeah.
bumpers, I said, oh man, I don't
Yeah.
know if I can bowl with you. I can't do that.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Right.
Okay. This next one here has to do with cities living in. Which city would you rather live in? Would you
Okay.
rather live in uh, New York, or would you rather live in Chicago?
Well, I've never lived in Chicago
Okay.
and I've lived in New York and I loved every second of it. You know, you either love it or you hate it. There's nothing in the middle with New York. I I guess I'd probably lean toward New York, but I'm always open to a new adventure. And if my career had taken me to Chicago, I bet I would have loved it.
Okay. Which sport would you rather watch on TV? Would you rather watch hockey or pro football?
Depends on what I'm watching. If it's the Stanley Cup playoff or final,
Sure.
I'll pick hockey. But overall, I would pick professional football because
Okay.
I love a multi-camera shoot.
I love it. I love it. Now, I'm going to ask you these last two questions for this or that. You've been great. You got to take one of these off. Okay. Are you a
Okay.
dessert person? Do you like desserts?
I've never met a dessert I didn't like.
Okay, here we go. So we're gonna
Oh,
name A, B, C, D. You got to take one of them off, and you cannot eat that for the rest of your days. A
okay.
is cookies. B is cakes, cupcakes, bundt cake, whatever cake. C is honey buns. D is ice cream. Which one are you taking off that you can't eat ever again?
Ice cream.
Wow, that was easy.
Yeah, that
Okay,
was easy. Baked goods. Oh, I just love them, all of them. Ice cream, meh. Okay. Yeah, I could live with
okay.
that. Yeah.
To be honest with you, Susan, I probably would go with the ice cream myself because I can't get rid of those cakes or cookies or honey buns, especially the honey buns. I can't get rid of
I
those.
love a good honey bun. Are you kidding? Oh my God. And hey, in Philadelphia, sticky buns, that was a thing. I don't know that you can even get them anymore, but
Right, right.
sticky buns.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Okay. Now, this last one here is about, again, you got to take something off that you can't do anymore. Okay. These are the
Okay.
four choices that I'm going to give you. One, A is teaching, B is producing, C is the voiceover job that you do now, and D is news anchoring. Which one would you give up and you'll say, I do not want to do that again, ever again? I know this is tough.
Producing. I mean, I'm good
Okay.
at it, but I really kind of prefer to be in front of the camera. And I've always said, producers and directors and lighting and audio people say, "Oh, I could never do that stuff in front of the camera." I said, "Are you kidding?" I said, "That's why I'm in front of the camera, because all you people are there to protect me from what's going wrong in the control room. The guest hasn't shown up yet, but you're there to protect me from that." Oh, no, no, no. It's much easier being the on-air person.
I like it. And you definitely have the on air face and personality. There's no question about that.
Well, you're sweet to say.
And listen, and we know in this business that how they decide to put people on camera and how they decide to put people behind camera. We know that. That's
Yep,
just the way
yep,
it is.
yep, yep, yep. True. True,
Absolutely. So
true.
you definitely have that, no question. That was great for this or that, by the way, Susan. You did
That was a
great.
lot of fun. Thank you. I've not played this or that with anybody on a podcast, so this was fun.
Awesome. That is awesome to hear. Well, I'm gonna segue to mental health. And the reason why I segue to that, I normally ask all my guests on here about how do they deal with mental health because it's more prevalent in our society, more so now than ever. People are talking about it. People are having breakdowns about it. Whether journalists are working at stations or whether they're working with teams and their social medias or whatever occupation that they have, some of the hierarchies do not consider individuals' mental health. And that's really sad to see. Uh,
Mhm.
how do you deal, first off, with mental health? Because mental health affects us all and we deal with it in different ways. Maybe you could talk about talking about it with some of your clients that you have, being their voice coach, because
Yeah.
obviously being a voice coach and having them project their voice and finding their voice and talking on camera can cause sometimes some mental health stuff because they're doing something that's uncomfortable to them.
Absolutely correct, Chris. Voice is very personal, very intimate. So, particularly for the young women who are in the process of stepping into their real voice, hey, there were reasons they didn't, and talk about mental health.
Sure.
Now, when I was coming up and when I was on the air, we didn't have school shootings. What? We didn't have climate change. We didn't have severe weather, it seems to me, as much as we do now. So the stress that I was under to do most shows wasn't like it is now. I
Sure.
don't know that I could be a TV reporter now. I could probably be an anchor, but TV reporters' jobs have gotten so hard to do. First of all, most of them are shooting their own video. I always
Yes.
had a photog. I hate these people who have to be MMJs because they're not paying attention to the story if they have to pay attention to all the technology, which drives me insane. So it is hard for young reporters, especially who are just out of school, don't have enough experience behind them
Right.
in dealing with whether it's the aftermath of a tornado. I was working with some people at a station was in Columbia, Missouri, I think it was. And one of the reporters, there just happened to have been 3 weeks in a row where there was a breaking story, a serious story about child sex abuse.
Wow.
And they gave that story to this young man 3 weeks in a row. And at the end of the 3 weeks, he and I were talking, and I said, you need a break. If, oh my God, if this comes up again, politely decline to do that story, have them send somebody else. It's hard, again, on somebody who's 22, 24, to get through all of that, listen to what you have to listen to, and then choose what to edit, what to say, what you can divulge, what you can't divulge. It it it's hard on your brain. It's sad and you can't be sad. It's it's a breaking story, but you have to remain calm. It's a story that might need an update in 2 or 3 days. So really you're not doing it once, you're doing it 3 times. Those stories can be devastating to a young reporter. And so I know of some stations who, for example, station in Kentucky, where this was 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, a
Okay.
lot of their people had to cover tornado aftermath, and their news director very wisely found a therapist who could come in and just talk with those reporters who were had to do the tornado aftermath stories so that they could decompress. News didn't necessarily have to make you decompress, but after 9/11, life changed. Life just got weird. Politics got insane. Um, Hate crimes, immigration, gender-related things,
Yeah, all the above.
Roe v.
Yep.
Wade. Oh my gosh, it's hard. It's just really hard. Um, and you do have to be protective of your mental health, and you do have to say, "Hey, wait, I need a break. I'm struggling. I can't do this anymore." And let me tell you, a lot of reporters last 1 to 2 years, and they go and do public relations or something else
Some of
because
the yep.
this wasn't what they signed up for.
And that's a great point that you bring up. And the reason why I asked that question, especially to a lot of journalists, because I have out of most of my episodes that I've talked to, they've mainly been journalists or people in sports, but there's been some other genres as well. But mainly journalists, because like you said, they'll get into the industry 1 2 years, they'll get burnout, right? And you
Yes.
hear stuff like overworked and underpaid. Because we talked about the money before, right? The money is not there when you first start out. People look at how glamorous it is because they see the pretty woman or they see the handsome guy on the 5 p.m. 6 news and that he's reporting or she's reporting on the news, and they don't understand what happens behind the scenes or what goes on to prepare to get to that, right? You talked about MMJ. For those of you that don't know what MMJ means, that means multimedia journalists.
Right.
Those are people that are one-man bands or one-woman bands. They go around, they set up shop, and they take their live shots from there and they report. Some of the areas that you got to go to though is pretty raunchy. There's some areas that's not very good, not very safe, and like I said, people are afraid to sometimes speak up. And once again, that can cause mental health issues when you're
Yes.
afraid to speak up and say, "Hey, I do need a break. Hey, please help me because I'm struggling." Right. So I know for me, I'm a huge family guy. So being away from my family here in Minnesota, I have no family here. So I knew calling my mom, my aunt, my uncle, they're in Georgia, down in the South, and then my dad and my stepmom, they're in New York. So I always call my family every week just to
Mhm.
check on them and see how they're doing. I like to work out. I like to write poetry, but I had to find things, Susan, to really not have my mental health affect me, because when you are working with some of these companies, it can be a little rough, especially with the hierarchies. It can be rough. So it's a question worth asking. I love that you said what you said, because it's so true, and hopefully people can listen to that when they hear this podcast.
And it's one thing to develop a tough skin 10 years down the line.
Sure.
You never forget your first murder victim, when you're a reporter and you look at your first dead body. Okay, you can build up to that if you're doing a lot of crime stories. But when you first get into the business and you're doing school shootings or horrendous weather or whatever it is, there's no time to develop thick skin. There you are, this vulnerable 22, 24-year-old who has grew up in a lovely family who protected them, and now they're away from home and they're having to deal with this. Um, there's a Facebook group called MM Janes, and it's just for girls because, quote,
Okay.
they shoot better than boys. So
Sure.
it's a woman's Facebook group. And the nice thing about it is they support each other, and they can go on the Facebook page and say, hey, I'm having trouble with this, or a news director that, or, I got my another thing. When I was coming up, if somebody wanted to insult you or yell at you or whatever, they would have to either pick up a phone and get through the switchboard or type something out, put a stamp on it, take it to the post office. Now you can just go to somebody's Facebook page and anonymously say really
Yep.
nasty things.
Absolutely. Yep.
No, 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 no. And of course, stations want their reporters and anchors to be out there and, getting comments. But let me tell you, and how about the stalking? Every single woman I know in this industry from my time through to now has been stalked. Some of it harmless, some of it not. I don't get that, and I don't know why men do that. It's and that's what it is generally. So we have to be careful of that. I mean, I remember my first job as a reporter. I was doing Sunday night, and I was the late reporter, and so I'm not getting home until about midnight. And I go to
Sure.
open my car door in the driveway, and there's a guy standing right there, and he says, "Are you Susan Murphy?" Well, that only happened because when I had moved several months earlier, I forgot to unlist my phone number, so you could just look me up in the phone book. Back when we
Right.
had phone
Right.
books,
Right.
I fortunately just outran him to the side door of the house. I was living on the second floor,
Wow.
and he didn't get in behind me. We've all had that. We've all had it happen. Every single one of us.
Three things to add before I move on to the next question. And I love your candidness, by the way. I appreciate that story that you just said. Reason why I like to do these podcasts, and I like to do it more so with women. I'm biased with that. I like everybody. Don't get me wrong, but I feel that women in journalism don't have the voice that they need to have on a consistent basis. I think that sometimes in some of these different kind of stations or teams or sports or news or entertainment or whatever genre you have, it's limited roles for women. And that's not, to me, that's not right. I think it should change. I think women can do just as great a job as men. You see a lot, especially in hierarchy situations. You see a lot of the men that control the hiring and control up there. I think women need more of a voice. I love to hear more of a voice, not just in sports, but in all different kind of genres. Um, no, go ahead. I feel like you had something to say. Go ahead.
Oh, I have a lot to say. So I'm coming up, and I'm graduating college in the late 1970s. And who am I standing on the shoulders of? Um, a, a, um, Barbara Walters, a Jane Pauley,
Sure.
um, some of those original Barbara Walters, those original women in broadcasting, and I'm standing on their shoulders. And I graduate, and in the late 1970s, TV stations could not hire women fast enough because that was the beginning of a serious women's movement. So it was easy to
Okay.
get a job.
Okay.
So I'm thinking, I'm doing my thing and I'm being as professional as I can and whatever. And I go through my career and I'm always professional, and I'm seeing, now I'm in New York for the most of it. So I am seeing women in management roles, women as directors, women as vice presidents, women as assistant news directors, whatever. But over the years, and now that I'm a coach, the stories I hear from young women about colleagues, about their bosses, about companies in general, I'm like, didn't I pave that way already? Why isn't it different? Why isn't it better?
It's
Well,
in recession. It's in recession, to be honest with you. It's going backwards.
yes. Well, sure we are. And look, shall we go there? Look at the conservative, and I mean that with a capital C, the
Yep.
conservative movement that has gone to squander and push back rights of women, gay people, people of color,
Yep.
uh, overturning Roe v. Oh, please, I just can't. And these young women that I am coaching, they don't seem to have the strength or the know-how or the desire to break through that, and I'm not sure why. Was it, do I have to go here too? Were they part of the generation of the everybody gets a trophy group where they were
Mm.
coddled, where they weren't taught how to fail, they weren't taught how to struggle, they weren't, if I hear one more young journalist complain to me that I had to work on Christmas Day, I couldn't be with my family. Hello, we're 24/7. Police officers, nurses, first
Right.
responders, we all
Right.
do this. Stop.
Right.
You'll get your turn in 6 or 8 or 10 years, but don't you tell me on. I had to work Christmas Day. Stop it.
Right.
Just stop it. Grow a pair, girl. You know?
I love it.
So I
I
have
do.
some of it is the condition of the world, but some of it is in a lack of fortitude on a lot of women's parts. And there I said it, and I'm not sorry.
You shouldn't be. Speak your mind, speak your truth, Susan. This is what we do on the Work Hard, Play Harder podcast. You got to be open about it. Listen, I'm not
I
a
am
woman.
loving this,
I don't
by the
know.
way. I am loving it.
I'm glad that you are. I really am. I'm happy that you're once again talking to Susan Murphy here on the Work Hard, Play Harder podcast. And listen, two more things I wanted to talk about. You brought up stalking, and to me, it's inappropriate. It's unacceptable, obviously, and it's something that shouldn't be dealt with by anybody in the industry, any woman, period, any man, anybody. Um, I think the one thing that I also wanted to add, though, the next thing I wanted to say was about being able to write comments about people on the air. Like, there's sometimes not only that you get stalking from men and inappropriate stuff like that, but you also get women on women. There's women sometimes that might write you and say, well, why did you wear that dress? Or why do you look this certain way? Or why this and that? And I'm like, man, I didn't think that really mattered when it came to the news. I thought that you just wanted to hear what's going on in your community. But a lot of journalists I've had on here said they get emails from women talking about their dress code and talking about their hair and the way it is. And I was definitely bewildered by that because I'm like, well, women shouldn't be writing other women like that, tearing them down. Why do you think that is?
Because of a lack and a deterioration of civility in society.
Okay.
We don't have to be polite. We don't, you know what your mother told you? If you don't have anything nice to say, shut your
Don't
mouth.
say nothing at all. Right.
Now, because you can run your mouth anonymously and without consequence. Yeah, I could block you, but you'll just go find somebody else to attack. You want to tie all this back to mental health? Stalking, um, people, school shooters, the mental health has to become as important to people as
Sure.
physical health. It has to go
Sure.
hand in hand. We have to do a better job of finding the right services and the young man who stood outside my car door in 1978 in West Palm Beach, Florida. I came to find out after I called the police, blah, 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 and I described who he was. They said, oh, well, we know him. He's psychologically challenged, mentally disturbed. He lives
Wow.
with his parents. He was like, 20, young 20s. He probably wasn't going to hurt me, but I didn't know that at the time.
Of course you did.
But he had just kind of escaped his family's house.
Okay.
So we need to do a better job of getting services to people who need them. And you can't just, how many times have you heard the parents of a school shooter deny that they really knew anything, or if they did know something, they didn't know what to do?
Right.
So instead of trying to protect teachers and school children, to give them drills and, hide under your desks and push furniture up against the door and whatever, could we go to the perpetrators? I often think about when domestic violence became a very hot topic in the 80s. It
Sure.
was all about protecting the woman, saving the woman, which is right. I get that. Could we talk about the guys who are abusing them? Well, we
Yeah,
we
we
didn't
can't let
talk
them
to
off the hook. I know that's right. I know that's right. Absolutely. Um, I love that. I love that. I really do. I want to ask this next question because I'm curious about this. If you wasn't doing journalism or in media or teaching or anything of that realm of communication,
Mm,
what career path would Susan have chosen?
hmm. There was a time I wanted to be a ballerina, but my body didn't cooperate in that realm, so I was never going to be a ballerina. Um,
Okay.
I I I guess I probably would have been a teacher. I love connecting with young people. Um, you and I do have that same curiosity thing going on. So something that helps and pushes forward and illuminates lives, which is what journalism does. I think that's probably where I would have ended up.
I probably would have definitely been in theater. There's no question about it. I definitely would probably would have been an actor. I love musicals. I've acted in Les Miserables. And yeah, in high school I did that.
In
So
high school.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely, yeah. So I did that, and I did a High School Musical as well. But yeah, that's definitely no doubt. I would definitely be a theater person if I wasn't in sports or
Yeah,
journalism stuff like that. And
yeah,
that's
yeah.
also the reason why I do sports as well, because sports is about wins and losses. There's great stories, feature stories that I've written in sports as well.
Yep.
But when you talk about news and crime and fires and tragedies, it is very hard for me personally and my personality to stick a microphone in somebody's face and try to get a record of what's happening when their baby got shot or somebody's been burned or something tragic has happened. Because I wouldn't want a microphone stuck in my face. I just wouldn't want that. So I
Can
went
I
to the news
defend
and
that for a
sports.
second, though? Let me defend it for a second.
Sure, go ahead.
I certainly see that side of it. It seems insensitive. However, I think there is some benefit to that. For example, especially in interviewing a mother who has lost a child to an overdose or a drive-by shooting or a gang-related something or other,
Okay.
there is benefit to that, I would like to think, because it puts a human face on the drug overdoses, the drive-by shootings. And of course, now that I'm saying this, has it made any impact? It seems very little. You know, school shootings, we're going to do something about it, and then nothing ever happens. And but I would like to think that if families could, and some of them do want to tell their stories, and they want other people to see how tragic it is, so they will do something to prevent it happening in their own lives.
Sure.
So I think that those kind of interviews can be done sensitively and in a way that does bring some awareness to the people who are watching. Can it be cringy? Of course. But done right, I think there's value.
Absolutely, I absolutely agree with you on that. I think there's terrific journalists out there to kind of compartmentalize it
Yeah.
Some of them may take it home with them, some of them may not, but they're doing a tremendous job of reporting out there for their local TVs or national
Yeah.
TV stations that they have.
Right.
I just know me personally, it would be not to say I couldn't do it, it'd just be very tough for me to do it because I'm such a person that emotion would probably take over me first of seeing that because I just don't want to. It happens. We get it. We do get it. It does happen. But I
And
just wouldn't want to do that.
you wouldn't be human if you didn't let the
Right.
tragedy of it strike you first. But then
Sure.
how do you use that? How can you turn that around for good?
Sure. Absolutely. I totally agree with that. I always ask about advice. What advice would you give someone that wants to be in this journalism business? What advice is someone giving you that you hold on dearly to?
Ah, ah, okay. That story, the advice I got goes back to my college days, and
Okay.
I was at Temple, and I was in a class where we were creating commercials,
Okay.
and our senior or the last project of the semester, whatever, we were going to do a commercial on air, and it was going to be taped, and I was going to do a little commercial about a particular kind of perfume. Fine. So now let me preface this story by saying I thought, oh, who I was when I was in college.
Okay.
I did.
You thought you was the bee's knees.
I
Okay.
did.
Gotcha.
I did. Yep. I was all that and more.
Okay.
So we're taping the commercial, and it was a real perfume was called Charlie. I think it was called Charlie. And I'm doing my thing, and I go to spray the perfume, and I spray it in my eyes.
Oh.
And I assume I dropped the perfume bottle. I don't remember, but I covered my eyes, bent over, and went, oh. And I heard from the back of the room. Now, this was back when the lights were so bright you couldn't see in the studio. There were people back there, but I couldn't see them. And I heard, keep going, Susan. So I picked myself up and managed to, I guess, get through the rest of the commercial. And that
Sure.
was, of course, the instructor in the course. The beauty of that was, okay, so everybody does that, and we're going to watch them back. He didn't make me watch mine back. But I will never forget the words, keep going, Susan. So that to me was the best advice I was ever given. And on TV, you got to keep going, right?
You do. You
So
do.
the advice I would give to someone today is I would say, you had better have a fire in your belly for wanting to tell the stories of the voiceless, to expose the wrongdoing in the world, to bring uplifting, great human interest stories. You better want to do this so bad that you can't imagine yourself doing anything else. Because let me tell you what this is going to cost you. You're going to have to move away from your family. You're going to have to make no money. You're going to be stalked. You're going to have long days. You're going to work Christmas Eve. You're going to go 3 years without a raise. You better want all of that, because let me tell you, this is not about glamour. In fact, I don't think it ever, even when you're the Today Show cast, I don't think it's about glamour.
No, not at all.
You had better want to do this so bad that you're willing to. It's going to cost your family. If you marry and have children, I mean, there were things. Yeah, yeah,
I can imagine. I can imagine. No, and you're absolutely right. You're gonna have to move away from your family, probably to a small town that you never even heard of. I always like to tell graduates now, being in it for a few years now, and a little bit before I was in my undergrad too. I always tell them three things, and maybe you can expand on the three things that I tell them. The first thing I tell them is plan a visit. Plan a visit to wherever you're going. And the reason why I say plan a visit is you got to know the surroundings. You got to know if that's comfortable for you. You also got to know meet your coworkers. You got to know if there's going to be people that you want to be around, people that you want to talk to, meet the bosses, and feel comfortable around. So plan a visit. The second thing I always tell people is that always listen to when they offer. When I mean like that is you'll plan a visit. If they don't give you more than 2 weeks, something's wrong. If they want you to start too fast, to me, that's a red flag to me. Because number one, you have to have enough professionalism to leave whatever job that you're going to leave first, or have enough professionalism to say, I got to find a place. I have to move. I got to move my stuff, whether you got to drive, how long you have to drive. You got to plan time for that. So if they don't give you at least 4 to 6 weeks to get settled in before you start, something's wrong with that picture.
Mm-hmm.
Then lastly is the money. Now, we know it's not a lot of money. However, you do not want to be a college graduate cooking top ramen every day. That ain't it. You don't want to do that. You'll have some days, but you definitely want to make enough to where you're not behind on bills. That's what you
Nope,
want to do.
that doesn't happen. I know plenty of young reporters who bartend, dog walk, and my favorite, they sell their plasma every
Yep.
2 weeks.
So that was my thing. My thing was the money. Understand that you don't want to do top ramen, so you may have to get something on the side. Is what I finished off telling them.
Right.
That's what I finished off telling them. You may have to get something on the side. I'm not sure if it's DoorDash, bartending, whatever, but know that you may have to get something to try to make ends meet and have a little extra for yourself. Because again, your first initial job may not pay you to cover everything that you want. So those are the 3 things that I particularly tell them, because that's what I did with my move.
And when you tell them, do their mouths drop to the floor and do their eyes pop open like, what?
They were surprised. A few of them, because most people that I get on here are already been in the game for a little bit, but there's been some that I've had college people that's juniors and seniors in college. They'll get surprised about the part where I said take a visit, because the main thing is, and they'll get surprised about that one more than anything. The money wise, I think they know after the podcast, like, look, this is not the most glamorous thing. You really got to love this in order to thrive and survive, right? But the take a visit part is what they get surprised about, because they say, well, oh man, I never even thought about that. I was like, yeah, when you say yes to these jobs, you got to know where the hell you're going. You got to know what cities are around you. Is there an airport around you? Is there dentists that you have to drive by? Like living situations. You
Yes.
got to get a visit in. If you've never been there, you need to go visit to find out where things are. And the most important thing is you have to meet your coworkers. If you don't like any of them, or any of them gives you a wrong vibe, then that's already a red flag there. You never want to just jump into a situation a new situation, I should say, and you don't meet any coworkers. Because every job interview that you go on, you're typically going to have maybe a manager or a coworker that you do meet in the interview. So that's what I tell them a lot.
Yep. All very good advice. Spot on.
Absolutely. So now, Susan, this is the portion where I have to ask you, what are 2 people? Okay, you got to give me 2 names. What are 2 people that you think would be great to do this podcast episode? And you got to help me get them on here.
2 names, people who would be great.
Absolutely.
Does it have to be in broadcasting?
No, it could be in any kind of genre. I mean, I obviously I do broadcasting, but it could be any kind of genre that you think would be awesome for their story to tell.
Oh, I got a couple of people. I got my friend Ivan Farber, who is out in Seattle, Washington, who is like a communication specialist, but he works in the financial industry, and
Okay.
he's really cool. He would love doing this podcast. That's one.
Okay.
I know a whole bunch of, other speech people in my realm. I'll have to think about the second one, but I'll
Okay.
find you 2. I'll find you 2.
Well, that is absolutely terrific.
Yep.
I love that. You have been absolutely amazing to talk to. You're so wonderful, talented, hardworking, driven, beautiful, all the above, Susan. It really is an honor and a privilege to talk to you on my podcast, and I really do appreciate it. As I always do, I always ask, is there anything else you would like to add before we conclude?
That's always the question that a reporter should ask the person they're interviewing before they turn the camera off, because you get really
Absolutely.
good answers. I have enjoyed this immensely. I have gotten to talk about parts of my career that I don't get the chance to play this or that. the time has flown by, and that's what makes for, I think, a great listening experience, is that the whole thing about podcasting and radio is that you're eavesdropping on a conversation. And
Sure.
I think, between the two of us, we gave out little gems and lots of little secrets and all kinds of fun things. And I wish you nothing but great success in your schoolwork and in your transition to a print reporter and with this podcast. May it grow and be number one on Spotify.
I'm hoping that that's the case. And no doubt about it. Once again, if I'm ever near the Charlotte area, I will have to say hello to you for sure.
Yes, you better.
Absolutely. No
Yeah.
question about it. You enjoy the rest of your Thursday afternoon. Thank you so much, Susan. You take care. Have a wonderful day.
This was so much fun.
Yes, indeed.